Croatia is often reduced to one image: blue water, stone towns, summer vacations. And yes, that side is real. But once you actually travel through the country, you realize Croatia feels very different depending on where you go. And most people only see a small part of it. What they don't see is how drastically the atmosphere shifts from one region to another, how the temperature changes, how the architecture evolves, how even the light feels different when you move inland versus staying by the sea. Croatia isn't just a beach destination. It's a mix of historic cities, island landscapes, mountain scenery, and places that feel completely different from the postcard version. And for a country that looks simple from the outside, it has a lot more range than people expect. The geography alone tells you this isn't a one-note place. The Adriatic coastline stretches for over 1,000 miles, but behind it lies a completely different terrain. Forests, lakes, hills that roll into mountain ranges, villages that feel untouched by the coastal tourism boom. If you enjoy discovering places beyond the usual tourist version, make sure you're subscribed. We explore destinations a little differently here. Dubrovnik. Start with Dubrovnik, the city most people recognize first. Massive stone walls, narrow streets, orange rooftops above the Adriatic Sea. At first glance, it looks almost too perfect. And that's what surprises people. Dubrovnik doesn't feel like a modern beach town. It feels historic, layered, almost cinematic. The walls themselves are a statement, built over centuries, reinforced, rebuilt after earthquakes and sieges. They're not just decoration. They're the city's foundation, its protection, its identity. Walking the old walls gives you the full contrast at once. The old city on one side, the open sea on the other. You see red tile roofs below, limestone streets polished smooth by footsteps, small squares tucked between buildings. And then you turn your head, and it's just open water, endless blue stretching toward distant islands. But here's what many people don't expect. Dubrovnik can feel intense, busy, popular, full of energy. Because once you move beyond Dubrovnik, Croatia starts to change fast. Split and the Dalmatian Coast. Head north along the Dalmatian Coast, and the atmosphere shifts. Split feels more lived in, less formal than Dubrovnik, more everyday life mixed into the experience. Ancient stone buildings are still there, but they're woven into shops, cafes, and daily routines. Diocletian's palace isn't just a site you visit. It's part of the city itself. People live inside the palace walls. They run businesses there. They hang laundry from windows that were once Roman chambers. The ancient and the modern don't just coexist. They overlap completely. And that's what makes Split stand out. It feels historic, but also active and current. There's a different energy here, less curated, more spontaneous. You'll find local markets selling fresh fish in the morning, outdoor cafes filled with people watching football matches, street musicians playing in squares that were built 2,000 years ago. Along the coast, the views keep opening up. Harbors, palm-lined promenades, clear water stretching beside old stone towns. Because Croatia isn't just coastline. The islands, Far, Korčula, island life. Then there are the islands. And this is where Croatia starts feeling more relaxed. Places like Hvar are known for their beauty. Harbors filled with boats, bright sun, stone streets climbing uphill from the water. Hvar has a reputation. Lavender fields, nightlife, luxury yachts anchored offshore. It's one of the more popular islands, and you can feel that energy when you arrive. But even here, if you move away from the main harbor, the island opens up into something quieter. But island life changes the rhythm. Everything slows down. And if you go beyond the busiest spots, you start to feel a quieter version of Croatia. Korčula, for example, feels smaller, more contained, more peaceful. The old town sits on a small peninsula, its streets laid out in a herringbone pattern designed centuries ago to reduce wind. It's compact, walkable, the kind of place where you notice details, the stone carvings above doorways, the way light filters through narrow alleys, the sound of the sea just beyond the walls. This is what makes the islands stand out. They don't just look beautiful, They change the pace of the experience. Time moves differently on the islands. Ferries run on schedules that feel relaxed compared to mainland life. Restaurants open late. Conversations stretch longer. There's less urgency, less pressure to see everything at once. And that shift, from the intensity of cities like Dubrovnik to the calm of island life, is part of what makes Croatia so varied. Quick question: if you could choose one side of Croatia, would you go for the historic cities, the islands, or somewhere more natural inland? Let me know in the comments. Because inland Croatia is where expectations change the most. Plitvice Lakes. Leave the coast, and everything feels different. Plitvice Lakes National Park is one of the clearest examples. Waterfalls, wooden walkways, lakes changing shades of blue and green. This doesn't feel like the same country as the Adriatic coast. It feels quieter, cooler, more reflective. The air is different here, fresh, damp from the constant movement of water. You hear the waterfalls before you see them, a low, steady rush that grows louder as you follow the wooden paths through the forest. The lakes themselves are layered, 16 of them connected by cascades and streams, each one a slightly different color depending on the minerals, the depth, the angle of the light. Some are turquoise, others are deep green. A few look almost silver in certain light. And that contrast is one of Croatia's biggest strengths. You can spend one day surrounded by stone towns and salt air, and the next walking through forests and cascading lakes. That's not what most people expect from Croatia, and that's exactly why it stays with them. Plitvice isn't an anomaly. There are other national parks inland. Krka, with its own waterfalls and swimming areas. Baklenica, which draws climbers and hikers. The Velebit mountain range, which runs parallel to the coast but feels completely separate from it. But even that isn't the full picture. Zagreb. Then there's Zagreb, the capital, and it feels different again. No coastline, no island atmosphere, no walled old city rising above the sea. Instead, Zagreb feels urban, calm, a little more understated. It's about squares, cafes, museums, and everyday rhythm. Zagreb doesn't compete with the coast for attention. It doesn't try to. It has its own identity, one that feels more Central European than Mediterranean. The architecture reflects that. Austro-Hungarian influences, wide boulevards, grand buildings with detailed facades. This is the side of Croatia many travelers skip. But that's also why it feels more local, more grounded. You get a sense of daily life here that's harder to find in the heavily touristed coastal towns. People commuting to work, students filling cafes, markets selling produce and flowers, trams running through the streets on predictable schedules. And it adds another layer to the country. Croatia isn't just scenic, it's lived in. And then there's something that connects all these places: food, culture, lifestyle. Part of Croatia's identity is in its mix. Mediterranean influences along the coast, heavier, more Central European flavors inland, seafood in one region, meat dishes in another, olive oil, wine, fresh bread, simple ingredients. The food reflects the geography. On the coast, it's grilled fish, octopus salad, risotto made with squid ink. Inland, it's roasted meats, stews, dumplings, dishes that feel more substantial and warming. Even the wine changes. The coastal regions produce crisp whites that pair with seafood. Inland, you find heavier reds that match the richer cuisine. And just like the landscapes, the lifestyle changes depending on where you are. Some places feel open and coastal, others feel slower and continental. The culture isn't uniform. It can't be. Croatia's history is too layered for that. Venetian influences along the coast, Ottoman touches in certain regions, Austro-Hungarian legacy in the north, Slavic traditions woven throughout. That mix is what makes Croatia interesting. It doesn't feel locked into one identity. So what makes Croatia so memorable? It's the contrast. Walled cities, island harbors, waterfalls and lakes, a quieter capital, a coastline that feels Mediterranean, and an inland side that feels completely different. All inside one country that many people think they already understand from a few photos online. But once you actually move through it, you realize Croatia isn't just a summer destination. It's more varied than people expect. More layered, more complex, more interesting the deeper you go. That's why Croatia isn't just what you expect. It's more than that. It's a country that rewards exploration, that changes depending on where you go and when you visit. That offers completely different experiences depending on whether you stay by the sea or venture inland. If you enjoy exploring places like this in a different way, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more coming. And let me know in the comments, what part of Croatia would you want to experience most?